What is up, guys? California Phantom with an important topic today, and that is used drones. Being a commercial drone pilot, owning my own company, you can imagine I go through a lot of drones, most of which I always buy through Advexture.com new, but there are certain opportunities and situations where I buy used, and this is where I run into the issues. It's sort of been a trial by fire, and I don't want to dissuade you. There are plenty of great opportunities with the drone use market, but I want to basically describe to you what to look for when purchasing a used drone. Let's get into it. Most people aren't aware that DJI and other drone manufacturers actually put what the equivalent to a void if removed sticker. This void if removed sticker comes in the form of a blue dot or a plastic piece of plastic that's a cap on the screw of one of the screws located in the chassis of the drone. For DJI, if you're looking into the Mavic 3 series, both the classic and the original telezoom version has it located in the same place, and it looks like this. If I'm buying a used drone, it does not have this, I'm not buying the drone. This is a deal breaker for me, and it's an important thing that you should look for when buying a used drone. Next area of concern is the wiring. So you want to make sure that there are no frayed wires, no slices in the wires where the arms fold into the body of the craft. This is not typically an issue of the Mavic 3 or Mavic 2, but again, if you're seeing fraying, chances are somebody's gone into the drone or have abused it in some way to cause this. It should be a huge red flag and an automatic don't buy. There's not really an issue with these more modern drones, Mavic 2, Mavic 3, but there was some issues with the Mavic 1 where we had fraying with the gimbal connecting to the aircraft at certain pitches. It would fray the wires over time and you'd lose signal between the camera and the aircraft. So that leads me to the next area of concern, which is cracking on the hull. If you are not taking care of your craft, you do not handle it properly when swapping batteries, you're doing a lot of smashing and grabbing, forcing down when you're placing the battery in and out of the craft. I like to do a lot of cradling. I'm not squeezing with my fingers a lot at all when I replace batteries, but there are a lot of pilots out there, a lot of people out there that do that. And that's where you run into the cracking on the side of the hull, cracking near the arms, and you just want to be conscious of that. If you're seeing cracking developing at all, chances are the pilot, the owner of the craft, didn't take very good care of the drone, and you want to be mindful of that. If there's got cracks at all, don't buy it. Next area of concern would be the props. So DJI has a very interesting twist lock on their props, and they in the props have teeth. You want to pay attention. You want to take those props off and inspect the nubs or the teeth of the prop. We're not talking about the outside edge. We're talking about the area that connects to the motor itself. You want to look for any warped plastic, any discoloration, or cracks themselves. They're stamped at the top where the props fold. You want to look for any cracks along those lines of the propeller as well. Any indication of cracking or failure, you want to replace the props right away. This isn't necessarily a deal breaker when buying the drone, but it's certainly an area of concern. You don't want to completely ignore it, buy the drone, throw it up in the air, and have a catastrophic failure when you lose a prop. A larger deal when buying a used drone would be the smart batteries. The smart batteries for DJI and many other drone companies are certainly on the more expensive side. So you want to make sure you're inspecting the contacts of the end of the battery. Make sure you have no coloration, no condensation, no anything. You want those to be clear, free, and unobstructed. You want to make sure the battery itself has no swelling, no cracking. If there's any issues at all with those things that I mentioned, you do not want to consider that a reliable battery. So that should be factored in when buying the used drone. If it has a couple of batteries with the drone and all of them are in this matter, then obviously you want to look for a considerable discount or don't buy the drone. The next thing you want to do is you want to inspect the motors. The motors are a valuable component, keeps the drone in the air. Not enough inspection is made and maintenance, and a lot of pilots out there just take off from anywhere. I myself, if I'm taking off from anything other than a street or a sidewalk, we're talking dirt paths, grass fields, you know, beaches, whatever, I'm using a Hoodman landing pad. It goes without saying, Hoodman makes the best. They're weighted, they fold down easily, stored away small. Hoodman, big shout out to them. You definitely want to get yourself a landing pad. But going back to the inspection, a lot of pilots don't care about this. They take off from whatever. Debris gets in these motors because they are opened, and premature failure occurs because you have bits of dirt, sand, debris, and now they're traveling, getting bound up inside of the motor. So you definitely want to inspect the motors, take a flashlight to it, maybe use, like in my situation, I use a camera dauber, blow it in there as much as you can, or maybe canned air. Make sure nothing's popping out of there. If you got a lot of dirt, dust, whatever popping out, chunks of stuff, you might want to consider passing it, because again, this is indicative of how the pilot's been, the previous owner's been taking care of the craft. And if there's a lot of crap in there, you know they're not taking good care of it. That covers a lot of the physical things. Next would be the things that you don't see. When you go to take off in the drone, one thing, probably the most important thing, involves the gimbal. So what you want to do is you want to get your drone in the sky and you want to orbit around a specific object. Pick a house, pick a building of some kind, a tree maybe, and give yourself just a sliver, maybe 5% of the horizon line with your grid lines exposed or open on the screen. And you want to orbit as fast as you can around that object and see and observe the horizon line. If you have an issue with the gimbal, I believe they call it a speed controller specifically is the part, but there's a specific component that fails in these drones if they're abused or just through long usage, where the horizon line would become exaggerated. It would look like you got no horizon on one side of the screen and a chunk of horizon on the other. That's an important, very important thing to look for when buying a used drone, because a lot of these have a considerable amount of hours on it, and you have failures, and those types of failures pop up first. So make sure your horizon line's level no matter what the speed. Other areas of concern are transmission. These drones are so advanced and so technologically capable that they can go well beyond visual line of sight. When you are testing your drone, make sure you take it out to close to beyond visual line of sight, and you should have no issues with transmission, especially if you have a clear line of sight to your drone. If you have signal interference issues or anything pop up on the screen, I would very be cautious of purchasing the drone, because oftentimes these things can creep up on a drone, and the reason why the person is selling the drone is trying to get rid of it because it is having transmission issues. It's a lot easier to offload the drone than to actually send it in for repair. This is in no way meant to discourage you from buying a used drone. Companies like Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, anything that is person to person, in person, is a great resource to buy a drone. I would just avoid things like eBay, because you don't really have any sort of proper recourse if something is an issue with the drone, and a lot of times you don't get it inspected like the things that I've mentioned in this video. You're not going to be able to do all those things, and you're going to have to accept the drone pretty much however it arrives. With all the many iterations of the Mavic 3, in the weeks and months to follow, we should see a lot of used drones hit the market, which is only going to benefit us. The cheaper price points of the used drones could allow you to potentially get a much more professional drone for less. So I encourage you all to utilize this video to help yourself buy a good quality used drone. If you found this video useful, hit that like, subscribe, drop me a comment down below letting me know maybe if you got burnt from a previous used drone or you found this useful at all. We'll catch you on the next adventure.